The president lashed out at NATO allies today for rejecting his call for help against Iran. Fareed Zakaria is with me now. He's the host of CNN, Fareed Zakaria, GPS, and he's written an op-ed in the Washington Post with the headline, quote, "Iran is an imperial trap. America walked right in." What do you mean by an imperial trap?
Well, you know, when you're a superpower and you can do stuff all over the world, you have to be relentlessly focused on, does this rise to the level of something that affects the core interests, values and prosperity of the American people? And this one just doesn't feel like that. Iran was a manageable problem. It was being contained. And it reminded me of those many times that Britain, when it was the global superpower, would get dragged into places like Iraq, places like Afghanistan, and kind of squander away its superpower status while America and Germany were building their industrial might. And if you look at what the United States has been doing for the last 5 years, 3 wars in the greater Middle East, while China is building up its industrial might, the historical parallel is kind of eerie.
Why do you think the president is calling this an excursion? I mean, they insisted on calling the Department of Defense the Department of War. Secretary of Defense wants to call himself the Secretary of War, and yet they're afraid to use the word war.
That is truly bizarre, right? Like, they renamed it the Department of War because they want to emphasize we don't, use euphemisms. Right. We call things what they are. It's a war. Except now they're saying it's not a war, even though it plainly is. The excursion thing I've heard is fascinating. Apparently, Trump was briefed on a number of times on the Iran war, and it was called an incursion. He started to call it
into Iran,
an incursion into
Iran.
Right. He started to call it an excursion, which is a brief trip organized for leisure activities. And maybe this tells you something about the way the White House works. No one has the courage to just gently and politely
Is that really true?
correct the president.
The president seemed to indicate yesterday that he had not been briefed on the potential that Iran might strike out at its neighbors or try to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Is that conceivable to you, that he would not have been briefed on those potential repercussions?
Well, I know for a fact that he was aware of those potentials. I raised the option of regime change in Iran several times during the time I was National Security Advisor. I never persuaded the president to adopt that position, and one reason was that others had different views, and every time I raised it, they raised a whole long list of difficulties that are entailed by a regime change campaign, and that if you're going to embark on it, you better have answers to them. And certainly closing the Strait of Hormuz was always one of them, and so were attacks on the Gulf Arab states, particularly their oil infrastructure. So he knew about it in his first term. I find it hard to believe that he forgot about it in the intervening years.